Hey everybody, it's Jordan here with Major Hi-Fi, back again with another review, and today we've got an update to a headphone that was super popular when it first came out. We're talking about the Sendy Aiva 2, we got it right here, and we're going to talk about what has changed and what stayed the same, and what you can expect from the updated pair. But first, if you like what you're seeing on this channel, definitely like and subscribe down below. It helps us make more videos just like them in the future, and we'll get them delivered right into your feed. The Sendy Aiva was super popular when it came out. It was a little bit different than other headphones. It had a different type of build, a different type of look, and a different type of sound. And so it really carved out a place as a unique headphone in that $500, $600 price range. And it was something special in the mid-fi category that gave people a taste of fun and enjoyable music listening that you couldn't really get from other headphones. And so now they've updated it to the Aiva 2, and there's some cosmetic changes, there's a few changes to the sound, but they've also kept a lot the same, because if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I'll also point out that the Aiva 2 comes in at about $599, so just under $600 and safely in that mid-fi category. So we're gonna get into all of that and more in this review, but first let's take a look at what's in the box. Obviously, I've spoiled things a little bit by taking out the Aiva 2 headphone already, but I want to show you what else you get in here, and this is what the box looks like. This is the first thing you'll see when you start opening things up, and they really give you some high-quality accessories. So let's just pop off the top here, and the first thing is this beautiful case. I'm pretty sure this is real leather. If not, it's some sort of protein leather. But it has that leather smell to it. It just literally reeks of quality. Inside the case is where you're going to get your headphones when you open it for the first time. But you're also going to get this pouch, and leaking out of the pouch already is this cable. It's a 4.4 balanced cable, so by default, they want you to listen to this headphone balanced. That's how the original Aiva was too. And we'll talk about the specifications in a little bit, but this is a headphone that likes quality and quantity and power. It scales with power and source, and so you'll definitely want to pair it up with other kit wisely. And then if you don't have a balanced amp, you want to run it single-ended, they also provide this handy converter. Goes from 4.4 balanced to 3.5 unbalanced. Okay, so let's talk about the look and feel of the Aiva 2. So when the original Aiva came out, it stunned listeners and reviewers and just everybody in the audio industry with how well it was built, how comfortable it was, and how premium it looked at such a mid-fi price point. It really was a complete package with a really good value. And the Aiva 2 does the same things, and it just takes things to the next level. So let's take it off the stand here. The first thing I'm going to talk about is the Zebrawood on the ear cups. They're a little bit darker than the original Aiva. It's a darker looking wood here. But again, a headphone that's doing like a real wood finish like this, under $600, it's just really impressive what you're getting here from Sendy. I've always really liked the look of these headphones, and I think they still are leaders in terms of looks. You've also got really nice components here. I mean, I'm just holding it and the build is just so nice. You've got steel plate yokes here with the Sendy logo on it, and then that carries through to the suspension headband. Again, using metal. There's, I don't think, a hint of plastic on this headphone. So it's just really high quality materials all over. And then you've got a suede leather headband here. This is real leather. And it's super comfortable. I did sometimes feel like it was a little top heavy. And on the topic of that top heaviness, it does come in at 420 grams. So it's overall not too heavy at the end of the day. I just want to put it in perspective. Like, while there does feel like the weight comes from the top, this isn't an overly heavy headphone. And then you've got these ear pads, which, as you can see, and the original Aiva did this too, but these ear pads have a little bit of an angle to them. And so they really shape around your ears. And on these ear pads, you've got protein leather mixed with memory foam. So again, really comfortable. Overall, it's robust and it's built like a tank, and you really can't go wrong with it. Okay, now let's get into the design of the headphone, and as complex as the build is, so is the internal build here. So let's start off with some of the driver specs, and it all starts with the 97 by 76 millimeter double nepheline magnetic array planar driver with an ultra nano double-sided magnetic 1 micron composite planar diaphragm. It's a big driver, there's a lot going on, and that's what leads to that 420 gram weight. But considering what's going on inside and outside of this headphone, I think the 420 grams remains pretty impressive. It comes in at 32 ohms and has a 96 dB sensitivity, and so it's pretty easy to drive on a technical level. But again, I think it scales a lot. I think it has a lot of scaling power, and so while you can power it to really good quality off of a basic DAC amp dongle or even less powerful equipment, I ran it out of my laptop single-ended, and while it wasn't the best possible experience you could get from the Aiva 2, it still does a pretty good job. But again, it's that scalability that makes this such a mid-fi contender, in that it can pair well with entry-level gear and higher-end gear, and you can hear the differences through these headphones. Okay, so with build and design out of the way, it's time to talk about sound impressions, the most important part. Now, like I alluded to in the design portion of this review, this is a headphone that scales well with different equipment. So it's mid-fi by definition by its price. It's definitely like a mid-fi headphone, but it does really well with entry-level gear, and it scales well with higher-end gear. That said, I want to say right out the gate that this is not an analytical headphone. It's not a headphone that is trying to compete with technicalities and overall quantity of detail retrieval. Instead, it's giving you some flavor, and it's doing the flavor really well. So let's start with the bass. Okay, so let's start with the bass, and this is the perfect example of what I'm talking about in terms of balancing, giving you the information you need to make it a faithful reproduction of the music you're listening to, but still giving you something unique and something with a lot of character. So you're getting a bottom end that's snappy and dynamic and pretty fast, but then the mid bass is a little bit more bloomy, a little bit more elevated, and so you're getting a combination of quick transients with musical bloom and a nice romanticism to it. I listen to everything from The Weeknd's new album, I listen to Sharon Van Etten's new album, and then I listen to classic rock like Neil Young, and I listen to classical music. I love Tchaikovsky's Fifth Symphony. I was listening to all sorts of stuff on this, and the bass has this texture to it. It's just sugary and sweet. It's just, you really want to get into the music. You start to stop paying attention to the detail and the dynamics of that bottom end and really become entranced by that musical bloom in that mid bass. I thought it was best for, pop and hip hop and stuff like The Weeknd more than Tchaikovsky, but there are strengths to this sound signature that apply to classical music, as well, and we'll get into that in a little bit. So the bass response overall is musical. It's fun, and it's going to give you an atmosphere where you're going to want to stand up and kind of move around to the music rather than sit there and pick apart every little detail that you're hearing. All right, so getting into the mid-range, it's really interesting how they implemented the frequency response here, because they really compensate for that mid-bass bloom with a little bit of an elevation in the upper mid-range. So you're getting a little bit of a dip going into those lower mids and then coming back up for the upper mids. And what this does is give you really tactile instrumentals. Again, it's all about the dynamics and the feeling here. Vocals have an ability to cut through the mix really well, but sometimes they do lack a little bit of the body you'd want from it to really give you that sense of center stage vocal performance. But again, the headphone wants to really get you to engage with the music, to really have fun with the music, and so it's relying on the energy of that elevated mid bass and that elevated upper mid range to give you some contrast and to give you some feeling. So that way, it's kind of like when you're at the club. You can tell in this sweater, I'm a guy who's at the club often, is you want to be able to cut through all of that music and all of that fun and still have vocal information and instrumental information that can cut through the mix and still keep the precision of the audio recording intact. At times, this can come across as a little bit uneven. Sometimes I found, especially on female vocals, that elevated upper mid-range could be a little bit too sweet for my taste. But at the end of the day, I wasn't sitting there nitpicking it because I was so engaged with the music and that dynamism that the headphone offers. Getting up to the top end, the original Aiva and the Aiva 2 are both really special in how it handles this top end with really good detail retrieval and resolution and a lot of headroom for the treble to really take off. But even though the treble is a little bit more elevated and more present and there's a sense of brilliance to it, it doesn't ever feel harsh because there's a timbral quality to it that just has a really sweet and sugary and candy-like type of feeling to it. And instead of feeling like, oh my God, this treble information is overwhelming me with harshness or sibilance, you feel like, give me more because it's so lush and textured and rich. The soundstage is wide, there's a really good sense of width, but there's also a top to bottom feel, and that comes from the size of the drivers and the way that the headphone feels. And again, that angled design of the ear pads, it all works together to give you an engrossing experience. And the word I want to use again is entrancing. You're just inside of the sound. It's all around you. The stereo field is really tangible in a way. But the imaging itself is a little bit less accurate. It's not going to be the most precise in terms of localization of sound. So it might not be perfect for gaming headphone use where you need to hear where footsteps are or you're really relying on the sound to pinpoint where your enemy might be. But in terms of listening to music, it gets you, and I keep saying this, it gets you to forget that you're listening analytically and makes you put that fan hat on. Sometimes I think as audiophiles, we have a habit of listening to the gear more than we're listening to the music. And Sendy Audio's solution to this is to give you a headphone that really makes you embrace the soulfulness of the music, the energy of the music. And you can hear that all throughout its frequency response as well as its soundstage. Okay, so with all of that said, I think the Sendy Aiva 2 is a really nice headphone to have in your collection. At $599, it fits into that mid-fi bracket and it can scale really well. And so it's the type of headphone you should have for really engaging with music, for listening for fun, and when you don't want to be caught up by all the information. For example, if you're listening to something like pop music that doesn't have the best mastering quality, this is going to be a little bit more forgiving and really let you have fun with that music anyway. But for a track that has that detail, it's going to present the detail in a really fun way. It's not going to undo any of the detail. As I said, it can really scale up with the quality of source and amplification, and you can definitely get that detail out of it. But it's going to reproduce it in a way that's more fun and engaging rather than hyper-analytical and ultimately a little bit dull. So I think the Aiva 2 is a great headphone for fun, loving listeners, and if you are interested in that, you should definitely check them out. I think they're a really great headphone. And with all that said, if you liked what you saw in this video, definitely like and subscribe down below. It helps us make more videos like them in the future, and it'll help deliver them right into your feed. I'm Jordan with Major Hi-Fi, and I'll see you next time.